Good evening, ladies and gentlefish, and today we are going to be discussing the topic of will things bode well for Dr. Bode Well, or will things not bode well for Dr. Bode Well? Here's a preset I just made, which is called Dr. Bode Well, which is made in Serum 2. Let's have a quick listen, and then we'll talk about how I made all of this from purely a sine wave. So yes, can you believe it? Things did bode well for Dr. Bode Well after all. And what happened was he was basically created in a science lab, and he was formed from a test tube which contained purely this sine wave, you know? And my headphones just, a little bit loose here, loosey-goosey, a little bit loosey-goosey. There we go. Oh, some weird artifacts happening in here. So, the only thing I've put on, as you can sort of notice here, is there we go. It's a little zero square, and it's on what was it, 2 or 3%, 1%. So this makes the sine wave go towards a square wave, but it's on just 1%, and you have got these little square wave harmonic buzz in the high end. But that's it. That's all I've done. Okay, and the rest of it is done all in the effects, right? So I wanted to do something where I have just one sound and I distort it a lot. So I've distorted it a lot. Yeah, here you go. I put the drive on 100 on everything, mix on 100 on everything, all distorting super, super high. Diode 1 is the mode that I've chosen. And then I've used the bode. So this is where Dr. Bode Well bodes well. And so I've basically used the bode mode, the bode unit, the bode device to make it all sound good. I've used it to actually put in the movement and create the tone. And so what happens is the mix is at 100%, right, on the bode. The blur will change the actual character, and it's at 48% here. The range and the shift will be used to put in the movement, okay? So I've already set it up here. I've actually got a little LFO with a slow movement that changes the shift. The shift is really where the key rhythm lies here, if I move it around. There I can go from slow to fast and the other way. And so it starts off like slightly slow, then gets sort of slightly fast, you know? But it's very subtle. I've just moved it a tiny bit. The range also. The range is similar in the fact that it also changes the rhythm, you know? But it's through the combination of the shift and the range that movement was created by putting them both, you know, in their certain positions. So 5% on the range here and sort of minus 36% on the shift, or 5 hertz here on the range, you know? Okay, so that gets the movement in. And the blur, like I mentioned, when it's close to the center, it's quite more, how can I say, like it sort of lends itself better to a more coherent bass sound. You know, when you go too far off in this sound, like it just becomes either too washy or like the tone's not so nice, you know? So it's at 48%. And that's really great because I've just got this distorted sine signal with no interest at all. And the bode is completely adding the character and movement to everything. So I just wanted to use the bode mode today and show you how you could sort of form the basis of a sound using that as basically the whole sound in itself, you know, by just having such a simple thing running straight into it, which is as we already discussed, a heavily distorted sine wave. Okay, so next, now we just enhance what the Bode has sort of spat out at us, you know. So the hyper dimension, I'm using a little bit of hyper. I have had a lesson recently with a student as well who this is probably worth a video in its own right, really. But when you're creating bass sounds, especially like in synthesis, if you're going to use effects, which I love to, like the hyper, the dimension, the chorus, it's important to never go too high on the mix because, yeah, when you're inside the synth, you've got this problem in Serum that you don't have the dry and wet separately. You know, it's always on the mix knob. So the more stereo you add, the more of the dry sort of weight and mono power that you lose. So you can add some, but you just never want to go too overboard. Otherwise, you'll end up getting a weak sound and you won't be able to sort of, it'll be difficult to reintroduce those powerful kind of harmonics in the low mids in the mono section, especially where you want them afterwards if you've lost too much of them, you know. So don't mix the stereo effects up too high if you can. I have done it on the Bode here. The Bode is kind of a stereo effect in a sense, but I'm not then doing it again on the, if I did it here, for example, on the hyper dimension, it really just becomes stereo and nothing in the middle, you know. Even with the Bode up at 100, it still sort of retains a certain amount of power down the middle. You know, it's still got some content there, you know. So anyway, yeah, the hyper, putting this sort of pitch movement in, 27%, and the dimension, adding a bit of a stereo reverb, 26% on the mix and 44% on the size. And then after that, a lovely bit of chorus. Again, it sounds great up, but then you just sort of lost a bit too much power, you know, so 26% only. Then I've got a lovely notch filter in here. This really brings it all to life and saturates the whole lot. Driving everything up around 23 percentiles and a slight bit of movement. I just set up this one little LFO down here. It's just a triangle at 2 bars just to give like a tiny bit of movement in just 3 different things. One, which you already saw, was the shift on the Bode, which changed the timing a little bit, you know. Can make it more extreme like that, but I just wanted that subtle timing change. And the notch is just moved around slightly, sort of from, between 70 and 127 hertz. It just sort of, just floats in that area, just for a little bit of subtle movement. We love the subtle movements over here on this channel, my G's. You know this is true. You know we love the subtle movements. It all stacks up to create beautiful natural sounds, doesn't it, my G's? Yes, then I've got the phaser. And this is 33%. Again, I'm using it. If you turn it up, it actually sounds really cool. And I put this movement again, my little LFO2, on the frequency here, which, and just in this area around like 144 to 332, had this lovely little vocal kind of little growl that I wanted to add in. And yeah, with the mix, essentially, I kind of brought it backed it off a lot, you know. So you don't really hear that overly phasey effect. And it's super subtle, but what it has done is it has put another layer of like natural movement into the sound, you know. And I could automate it to come up a bit more. Maybe I'll do that just for you guys. Have it on the LFO2 and turn it up a bit here. So you get a little bit of that wow phaser sound just coming in just for a little moment. Very subtly though, I do want it subtle. Yeah, that's perfect there, perfect. Really paying attention to the details on this one. And then we distort things all over again. So this time I've done the diode 2. So no diodes have been left out on this patch. We had diode 1 first, distorting the whole sine wave, and now diode 2 is doing just a 25% drive and a 28% mix. I kind of got away with it there, you know. Sometimes when you got a lot of low end power and you try to distort again, it overdoes the low end, overcooks it, you know. But I still was able to cook the sausage a little bit more without it burning, you know. So that's great. So we like the sausages charred, you know. It's not burnt to the poison, but you know, crispy as you know, like a dry squid, you know. So basically, after that, you've got the splitter with the low-high functionality, which is wonderful. And in the high end, yeah, this is a new trick that I've just done, actually. This is also news just in. This you hear the higher buzziness of those square waves. Zzz, and the high end, you know, of that kind of it's sort of comes a little bit from that. From the fact I sort of squared the sine wave off a little bit and added those little buzziness in the top end, you know. Yeah, you hear that, right? But when I put the convolver on the high end and turn the mix right up, I'm just targeting that buzzy area and just reverbing it out, only that part. So here, you see when I turn the mix up, it dampens the sound like beautifully. I've used the reverb here from my little Foley convolution reverb mini pack I uploaded on my Patreon a week or two ago, which you can go ahead and grab for free when you're over on Patreon. And it's just like sort of 10 sounds that I created in the Space Blender by reverbing out some Foley sounds and creating like artificial convolution reverbs and then putting them in Serum. So I've got nicer convolution reverbs to use that have a bit more like noticeable content. So this one's great. It just convolutes the high end because I've got the mix up here like 7.8K. So I'm just targeting that buzz from the square wave at the top, you know. And they're about 72%. You let a tiny bit of that buzz through still, but it's so subtle, you know. It's really, really subtle, you know. So, but it really dampened it all a lot. Dampened it? I think dampened it a lot. It's wonderful, isn't it? Because like you always have these high-end, buzzy kind of sounds in your synth if you're doing additive synthesis with like square waves and saw waves, you know. So having that convolver in that low-high splitter is a great way to sort of just soften out those harsh high parts of the sound. Then I just literally scooped things up a bit. I don't know what, that doesn't make any sense. I just finished off the patch is what I'm trying to say. I finished off the patch with a touch of reverb, with a whole reverb, little hole on everything. It's very subtle. You kind of just hear it a little bit, and a little bit of a EQ boost, which is around 2K. Super subtle. It's kind of like almost the middle of the treble area, slightly in the upper side of the middle biting point of the treble of the sound. Just felt like it had a little bit more bite there in the mix, you know. So, and if I wanted to like give it some sort of extra variations, I could just go ahead and adjust the blur to change the tony blur to adjust the sort of character a bit. That's quite nice as well, because it all goes back to Dr. Bode Well, you know, all back to the Bode unit. And I could adjust the shift and the range to get a different movement. You know, so you could do some crazy stuff, just going back to the Bode and messing around with a bunch of cool stuff in there, you know? So anyway, that is Dr. Bode Well. You decide in the comments down below, did Dr. Bode well for you, or did he not bode well so well for you, Dr. Bode Well? So thank you very much for watching today, my G's. I highly appreciate everyone on the channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a wonderful comment down below. And I guess we'll see you in the next one. Check out the links down below as well. If you guys want production lessons, I teach one-on-one. I have mixing and mastering services available as well. Send me an email for that. Serum presets are plenty, plus Vital, Current and Phase Plug, all on my website. And also, come along and join us on Patreon. We've got a great community over there. Discord with daily chats, feedback live streams, group masterclasses, loads of cool stuff on the Discord as well. All right, that's it for me today. More from me very soon. Much love.